Well, since I've been streaming so much and playing so much, I figured I'd go run through this upcoming changes and improvements list. So, Path of Exile 2 has been live for just over a week. We've addressed some feedback already and are working on more fixes for key pain points in an upcoming patch. The full patch notes are coming soon, but check out some of the more significant changes below. Gameplay features. Like we mentioned last week, we'll be adding the capacity to fast travel between checkpoints within an area, as well as adding many more checkpoints to areas. Generally, at all entrances and exits to areas, meaning if you find these first, you'll be able to instantly travel to them to continue exploring. We'll also be making passive point respecking cheaper, especially at higher levels. It had a relatively aggressive curve, getting more expensive with character level. We have flattened that curve so it doesn't exponentially grow as much. This should generally result in approximately 40 to 50% less gold cost for respecting between the start and middle of in-game progression. So if you got builds, I guess, that you start off with one way and then you find like better ways or other stuff, it's going to be easier to respec into that. So that's cool. Uh, Trial of the Secumus. Players were finding Trial of the Secumus particularly frustrating in close range, so we've reworked how honor damage scales when in close range, as well as fixing an important bug that was causing players to take far too much honor damage from damage over time. Honor damage now scales down based on distance to enemies. When in close range, you'll take 33% less honor damage, tapering off as you are further away from monsters. Fixed a bug where damage over time dealing thrice as much damage to honor as intended. Was dealing thrice as much damage to honor as intended, so way too much damage. And fixed a bug where honor resistance was only applying to 2/3 of that damage. It was confusing for us too. That sounds like Blizzard math. I know these guys are different, but that sounds like a Blizzard math thing. If you ever play Diablo, Blizzard math, it's a thing. Anyways, Skitter Golems no longer use basic attacks and instead now just explode. Serpent Clan's burrow and ambush attack now has improved visual telegraphing and cannot be used from as far away. Volcanoes created by Rattle Cage's Fissure Slam now last half the duration. I already beat that, so whatever. But no, it sounds like if you haven't beaten it yet, it should get easier for you. Less damage taken all around, and Rattle Cage will be a little bit weaker. In-game and monster balance. Generally, the balance in in-game maps was more punishing than intended. So we've toned down the damage in a number of ways and disabled a certain on-death effect where the telegraphing was not as clear as it should have been. I have actually run into some issues with some stuff being telegraphed in some boss fights, and it's like, how do you even dodge that? Because you don't know it's coming, or it's like when you get the telegraph, there's such a short duration between the telegraph and the actual attack that you don't really have time to react. I mean, yeah, there's a couple bosses. Um, Anyways, so where was I? Where was I? Oh, okay, in-game and monster balance. Generally, balance in in-game maps were more. Oh wait, I already read that. Maps no longer have additional elemental resistance penalties inherently applied at tier 6 and tier 11 on or higher maps. Oh, so this is more about mapping. It's now consistent across all of the in-game. This is for the people that are mapping, just psychos who never got any sleep for the past weeks. Uh, Anyways, just kidding. Chaos damage now also scales less aggressively over the in-game. Critical strikes from monsters now deal 40% less bonus damage. My dog's trying to eat her tail. Lower the baseline monster density of breach encounters. Okay. So it's going to be less monsters on breach encounters so you don't get swarmed and killed. Primarily by reducing the frequency of the elite monsters appearing. Oh, I don't want less elites. Disable the volatile crystals modifier. We'll revisit this in the future pending telegraphing improvements. Purple explosive created by the volatile plant modifier on rare monsters now deals significantly less damage. The siphon's flash charges modifier on monsters now drains 10 times less flash charges per second. This was unintentionally draining way too many charges. These changes should generally result in an endgame that is much more survivable than before, and we will continue to address problematic cases as they arise. Well, that's cool because it's going to get easier for people who are struggling. And hats off to all you guys who got there by yourselves with all the situational stuff going on in the game right now. Because I'm playing a ice sorceress, as you know, and there's definitely been plenty of issues I've been dealing with. But I don't know. I mean, I know some of us are like, geez, this is way too hard. Not me. And then some of us are like, man, how can I do it anyways? So that's cool. That's really cool. Hats off to you guys. Did I read this one? Yes. Skill and support gym balance. Since launch, we've unfortunately had to nerf a few skills that were far too overpowered. How do we define overpowered? Basically, it's a situation in which certain skill is so powerful that players feel no other method of playing the game is visible. Generally speaking, we are trying to do this in a way that doesn't make a build bad, but we can make mistakes. Ideally and truly meta shifting changes will only happen at the same time as a content patch with a new league to play in. So that sounds like, seasonal league stuff. But that doesn't mean we haven't. Oh, but in changing builds, if I'm understanding that correctly, that if they make a build bad by accident, then they're not going to fix it until a new season or league comes out. I think that's what that's saying. That's kind of scary. But anyways, but that doesn't mean we haven't been looking at underpowered skills and support gems. We've got a number of changes planned which should improve some of these skills. The full list of changes will be in the patch notes, but here's a simple sample of what you can expect. Improvements to rolling slam and shield skills in the mace section. Improvements to various bow skills, especially the skills used to generate frenzy charges. Improvements to bone spells and chaos damage over time spells in the occult section. Improvements to various crossbow skills, especially those at higher tiers. And improvements to some of the underachieving quarterstaff abilities. Alongside all these skill gem improvements, we've also done a pass over the support gems. We've added 2 new supports and removed or lessened the penalties on many others, notably the fire, lightning, and cold exposure supports. Added Tremors support gem, which can be used to give up to multiple more aftershocks to skills with a damage penalty. Added the bidding support gem, which can be used to give more damage to the command skills of supported minions. The fire exposure, lightning exposure, and cold exposure support gems no longer penalize damage of supported skills. They now have a mana cost multiplier of 120%. That's something I really don't like. Because right now, with my cold... If I'm understanding that correctly, I cast a debuff that looks like this, actually. Coincidentally enough, this debuff at the bottom of the page right here, I cast a cold debuff that absolutely wrecks my mana. So it's made it, in the beginning, it didn't seem as bad, so I would cast it, and then I could spam my skills, and a lot of times I would be fine. But if I have a little bit less mana regeneration or anything like that, it just drains my mana before I even get to casting very much skills, and it's made it really difficult. So if that cost multiplier of mana is going to be 120% increase, that's going to make it really, really hard for us ice sorceresses if we're trying to debuff while we're casting. So I'm interested to see how that changes the game. But if I'm understanding that correctly, I don't think that's going to be a good thing for me. And I'm hoping that if it is as bad as I'm thinking it to be right now, that it will get fixed in the future. But we'll see, I guess. There are also some notable nerfs to a few of the remaining overachieving skills. Skeletal Arsonist Spirit costs now match the other two skeleton mages. This should result in a slight decrease in the number of arsonists at a higher level. A nerf to the damage over time component on very high levels of Tornado and Vine Arrow. These were never intended to be dealing damage themselves, but more so act as a way for other skills to propagate damage. So it seems like those were more meant to be like a CC effect to give you an opportunity to blast away. Magnetic Salvo can now only use your stuck lightning arrows as opposed to those created by your party members. Interesting. Huh. And then as we wind down for the holiday season, we wanted to thank you all for our most successful launch so far. We could not have done it without all of your support. A lot of our team will begin to take much needed rest over the next few weeks, but we look forward to getting back in the new year refreshed and ready for an exciting year of development in 2025. Happy holidays, Exiles. Word. Well, we will see. We will see. All right.